There's a certain peace that comes with predictability, the kind found in warm Sunday mornings, in the creak of floorboards you know by heart, in the scent of fresh coffee drifting through a sunlit kitchen. For Michael Harper, that peace had long been the scaffolding of his life until it cracked. It began with a glance. They were standing in the backyard of their suburban home in Brookridge, a tidy, respectable neighborhood where fences were low and gossip flowed freely through garden hedges and wine club whispers. Ashley was laughing, sunlight dancing off her golden hair, head tilted ever so slightly toward Ryan Miller, the neighbor. Michael noticed it not in the laughter itself, but in the fraction of a second afterward when her eyes lingered too long. When Ryan looked back, the smile between them wasn't one of passing friendliness. It was curated, careful, and wrapped in subtle invitation. It didn't belong to him. Michael said nothing. He'd always been a man of reason, calm, methodical. Reacting now, storming in with accusations, would accomplish nothing. So instead, he watched, quietly, attentively. Ashley had been distracted lately, her phone now tucked under pillows, bathroom doors locking more often. Girls' night turned vague, locations omitted. But she was clever. She hadn't made a mistake yet until she did. One night, Michael returned home earlier than usual. She didn't hear the door. Her voice, low and conspiratorial, filtered through the hallway. He stood in silence, listening. Laughter. Flirtation. Can't wait to see you again. I missed you. Then a pause. Michael didn't move. She was talking to someone she needed to miss, and that someone wasn't her husband. Still, he said nothing. Instead, that night, while Ashley slept soundly beside him, her breathing slow and unaware, Michael slipped quietly from bed. He moved with a patience born of calculation, not panic. In his study, he retrieved a small package he'd ordered weeks ago. On a whim he'd never thought he'd need. 2 discrete cameras, one for the living room, one for the bedroom, and he installed them that night. Days passed, the evidence grew, first subtle, a brush of hands, shared smiles, then more. Footsteps during Michael's late meetings, whispered phone calls. Finally, what he feared, the betrayal unfolded on screen with intimate clarity. Ashley and Ryan, in his home, crossing lines with the comfort of practiced lovers. But Michael didn't fall apart. He sharpened. Each frame he recorded was another piece of a puzzle, a carefully constructed trap. He wasn't going to scream. He wasn't going to fight. He was going to reveal, because in Brookridge, reputation was everything. And when the perfect couple next door turned out to be the center of scandal, it wouldn't be rage that brought them down. It would be truth displayed, dissected, devoured. And Michael, he'd be the one pressing play. On the surface, nothing changed. Michael still waved at Ryan every morning while collecting the paper, still kissed Ashley on the cheek before she left for her yoga class, still greeted the neighbors with that same steady, respectful calm, the same man, the same routine. But beneath the mask, a storm was gathering. The footage he had collected wasn't just proof of betrayal, it was leverage. Michael didn't want revenge in a fit of rage. He wanted precision. And in a place like Brookridge, timing was everything. It was a community obsessed with perfection. Manicured lawns, themed barbecues, monthly newsletters with Neighbor of the Month spotlights. Appearances weren't just valuable here, they were currency. And Michael was about to bankrupt 2 people. Ryan Miller wasn't just a charming neighbor, he was also preparing to run for the local council, a move everyone in their small suburb was buzzing about. His campaign hadn't officially launched yet, but the signs were there. A sudden uptick in social presence, charity event appearances, strategic coffee dates with influential homeowners. He had the smile, the handshake, the performance down to an art. And Ashley, she'd become part of that performance. Her Instagram feed, once full of sunsets and homemade pasta, was now dotted with candid shots of her at community events, always coincidentally standing near Ryan. People noticed. Whispers began to swirl. Michael didn't start the rumors, but he didn't stop them either. He fed them carefully, quietly. A vague post in a neighborhood Facebook group. Funny how some folks play house in more than one home. Wonder if voters will care. An anonymous letter slipped into mailboxes. Ask your neighbor why the lights are on when her husband's not home. It was never enough to accuse, only to suggest. Suggestion was more dangerous. It let the community draw its own conclusions, and Brookridge loved to connect the dots. Meanwhile, Michael kept collecting. He learned their schedule, when Ryan would sneak in, how long Ashley would wait before opening the back gate. He timed their trysts down to the minute, and still, every morning he smiled and waved. The community began to shift. At the local cafe, where neighbors gossiped under the hum of espresso machines, you could feel it, the crackle of anticipation. A scandal was brewing, and everyone wanted front row seats. Then came the twist. During his quiet surveillance, Michael uncovered something unexpected. Ryan's campaign wasn't just about ego, it was about escaping debt. Michael, being meticulous by nature, had run a background check. On paper, Ryan's finances looked clean, but a few back-end queries buried in the county's permit filings revealed a different story. Ryan had quietly mortgaged his home 3 months ago, and taken out a business loan under a shell LLC that had yet to produce anything but promotional material. He was gambling on public office to repair his image and his finances, Ashley, Michael realized, wasn't just a lover, she was a campaign asset, eye candy to win the female vote, a partner in ambition, not just lust. Michael's disgust deepened, but so did his clarity. This wasn't just betrayal of marriage, it was betrayal of character, of community. He didn't want to simply expose an affair. That would make people uncomfortable, maybe even sympathetic. No, he wanted to unveil a rot hiding under polish. He wanted to tear off the mask in front of everyone at the perfect moment. So he began to plan the setting. The Harvest Gala, the town's biggest community gathering, scheduled 2 weeks from now. Ryan was rumored to be making his official announcement there. All eyes would be on him. It would be the most watched moment in his life. Michael would make sure it was also the most humiliating. The trap was almost ready. And the best part, no one suspected a thing. The days leading up to the Harvest Gala moved slowly, but Michael welcomed the drag of time. It gave him more room to perfect his plan. He wasn't just preparing a revelation. He was engineering a spectacle. The footage alone, crisp, time-stamped, damning, would be enough to shatter Ashley and Ryan's facades, but Michael knew better than to rely solely on evidence. Truth had a funny way of bending under the weight of charm, denial, or well-timed tears. No, what he needed was not just to expose, but to frame. He had to set the stage so that when the truth dropped, the audience would already be prepared to believe the worst. He started with the town's lifeline, the neighborhood chat group, a local hub of classifieds, complaints about teenagers on bikes, lost cats, and event planning, a digital village square. It was where reputations were whispered into existence or shattered without mercy. And Michael, always observant, had spent years lurking, reading every thread, every passive-aggressive emoji-laced comment. Now it became his playground, using a fake profile. Concerned resident 78, he began sowing seeds of doubt. Does anyone else think it's strange how often council candidate Ryan Miller is seen at the Harper residence, especially when Mr. Harper's car isn't in the driveway? Just curious. Replies flooded in. Some dismissed it, others speculated, but the tone had changed. Ryan's name, once mentioned with admiration and support, now appeared with caution, curiosity, contempt. Michael fanned the flames further. Subtle mentions of Ashley's increasing presence at campaign events, of Ryan's house lights flickering at odd hours, an image or two from his surveillance footage, just vague silhouettes at night through a window, untraceable to him, but suggestive enough to rile suspicion. Then came the birthday party, not his, not Ashley's, but a neighbor's child, a poolside gathering Michael attended, holding a drink he never sipped, and observed how Ashley laughed a little too loudly, how Ryan across the patio never took his eyes off her, how people watched them, not with admiration, but with that quiet, gleeful judgment that only small towns can perfect. Have you seen how close they've gotten lately? He overheard a woman whisper to her friend behind a pair of oversized sunglasses. Didn't Ashley used to be a bit more private? Michael didn't contribute. He didn't have to. The machine had already been set in motion. That night, Ashley didn't come home until well past midnight. She texted him earlier. Late night campaign strategy with Ryan and the others. Don't wait up. Michael read the message 3 times, not because he was hurt that it passed, but because it proved how much she underestimated him. She thought she still had the upper hand. She thought the mask still held. The next morning, Michael mailed a sleek, unlabeled USB to the Brookridge Gazette, the local newsletter run by a gossipy retired journalist named Karen Whitley. The files were encrypted with a simple text note. You pride yourself on uncovering the truth. Here's one too big to ignore, but if you want to see more, come to the Harvest Gala. He didn't need to sign it. Karen's curiosity would do the rest. He also sent an anonymous message to 3 PTA board members, phrased innocently enough, thought you might want to reconsider endorsing Ryan Miller for the council given his extracurricular activities. He attached nothing, just the implication. It was more powerful that way. By the end of the week, Brookridge hummed with tension. No one dared speak directly, but glances lingered longer. Conversations dropped into awkward silence when Michael entered a room. He wasn't sure if they pitied him or feared him. He didn't care. The night before the gala, Michael prepared everything. He hired a discreet AV technician from a nearby city to handle the equipment at the event. Told him it was a surprise tribute video for a local hero. Paid in cash, provided an edited video file with clear instructions. Play this when Ryan walks on stage. Don't ask questions. The video was brutal in its precision. Not crude or explicit. Michael didn't want scandal porn. He wanted evidence. 38 seconds long, clips from his own home. Ashley entering. Ashley kissing Ryan in the living room. Ryan adjusting his tie in their bedroom mirror. Overlaid with soft music, the instrumental version of a classic love song. And finally, the title screen. Leadership begins at home. Michael saved the file on 3 separate drives. That night, he stood in his study and stared out the window. Across the street, Ryan's house was lit up, people coming and going. Final campaign prep, probably. Ashley had spent the last 2 nights there. No excuses this time. Michael didn't sleep. Yeah, he didn't need rest. He needed result. In less than 24 hours, everything would change. Ashley's carefully curated life, Ryan's polished campaign, the town's false sense of moral superiority. He poured himself a drink, the first in months, and took a single sip. He wasn't just exposing an affair, he was setting fire to a lie and inviting the whole town to watch it burn. The Harvest Gala was Brookridge's crown jewel, a lavish annual event held in the community center's Grand Hall, a space usually reserved for town meetings and yoga classes. But tonight, it shimmered. String lights draped from the rafters, wine flowed like gossip, and the air was thick with curated smiles and political undercurrents. Michael arrived early. He wore a tailored charcoal suit, crisp shirt, no tie, understated but sharp, not flashy enough to draw attention. Not yet. He greeted a few neighbors, offered the polite smile of a man who had been through a rough patch but was handling it well, the kind of smile that made people feel comfortable until it didn't. Ashley arrived 20 minutes later, glowing. Her dress, emerald silk, elegant and calculated, clung to her in a way that made the room tilt slightly. On her arm, Ryan, ever the politician, in a navy suit that screamed casual confidence. They worked the room like co-hosts of a talk show. Ryan shook hands, Ashley laughed in all the right places. They looked untouchable. Brunel. Michael watched them from the edge of the room, nursing a single glass of red wine, never sipping. He didn't need alcohol. He needed clarity. At 8:13 p.m., the murmurs started. Someone spotted the Gazette's editor, Karen Whitley, leaning over her table with 2 PTA members, whispering urgently. A councilwoman glanced twice at Ashley's hand lingering on Ryan's arm. The atmosphere began to shift. Not dramatically, not all at once, but like a subtle tilt in the Earth's axis. By 8:20 p.m., the MC, a local realtor with a talent for over-enunciation, called everyone to attention. Ladies and gentlemen of Brookridge, thank you for joining us at our beloved Harvest Gala. We have a very special announcement tonight. Please welcome a man many of you know, and perhaps one we'll see in a different light soon, our very own Ryan Miller. Applause scattered at first, then growing. Ryan strode toward the stage, grinning wide. Ashley remained near the front, hands clasped like a proud political spouse. Michael exhaled slowly and moved toward the back of the room, near the AV table. The lights dimmed. Ryan stepped up to the mic. Thank you, everyone. It's truly humbling to stand here tonight and announce my candidacy for the screen behind him flickered to life. At first, there was confusion. A quiet hush swept across the room as a video began to play. It was too polished to be accidental. Soft piano chords drifted from the speakers. Then came the images. Ashley entering a familiar front door, Ryan following, the angle unmistakably from a hidden corner of a living room. Then another clip, Ashley leaning into Ryan, her lips brushing his neck. Ryan sitting on the edge of Michael's bed, tying his shoes. Ashley in lingerie, glancing toward the camera, unaware. Silence broke like glass. A gasp, then another. A hand flew to a mouth, a chair scraped against the floor. Someone whispered, "Is that his wife?" The title screen appeared. Leadership begins at home. Then blackness. The lights came up a few seconds later, and the air in the room had turned radioactive. Ryan stood frozen, mouth open, a hollow protest trapped in his throat. Ashley, pale and motionless, stared at the screen like it might still be playing. No one applauded. No one moved. Michael stepped forward. He didn't walk to the stage. He didn't need to. Instead, he simply stood in the middle of the floor, hands folded in front of him, facing the crowd, not his wife, not Ryan, but the community. "I believe that says more than I ever could," he said, his voice calm, clear, controlled. "You've seen what happens behind closed doors. Now you know what kind of leaders and neighbors you've been supporting." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't cry. He didn't gloat. That made it all the more devastating. Karen Whitley stood up at her table. "The Gazette will be running a full expose next week," she said quietly, already typing into her phone. "This is going to change everything." Ryan turned to Ashley. Did you know he was recording us?" Ashley's lips parted, but no words came. Her mascara had begun to run, the green of her dress now clashing violently with the red in her eyes. The whispers spread like fire. "I thought they were just close friends. I heard the Harpers were having problems, but this, did she really cheat in their own home?" Michael didn't wait for applause or judgment or pity. He left the hall before anyone could stop him. Outside, the autumn air was crisp and sharp. He walked alone past rows of parked cars, past the moonlit windows of homes that would, by morning, buzz with speculation. He didn't feel triumphant. He felt empty, not broken, just done. Inside, the gala continued, without joy, without music. The scandal had become the event. Michael had lit the match. Now he watched the fire take hold. 2 days after the gala, the silence in the Harper house was deeper than ever. Michael had returned that night to a place that no longer felt like home. The air felt sterile. The living room still bore faint impressions where Ashley and Ryan had once sat. The same couch, the same rug, the same walls. And yet, everything had shifted. Ashley hadn't come home. She hadn't even tried. She'd moved in with her sister across town. Ryan's campaign had been terminated less than 12 hours after the gala, and the community board had issued a formal statement condemning breaches of public trust. Karen's story ran with the headline, "A House Built on Sand, the Real Faces Behind the Facade." Michael read the article once, then deleted it, not out of guilt, or because he didn't need to relive what he already knew, what everyone now knew. He spent the next few days in quiet isolation, not hiding, just existing. Neighbors offered supportive glances, murmured sympathy in grocery aisles, but no one lingered, not out of cruelty, but out of discomfort. Michael had become a symbol, not a man. The reminder that beneath even the most perfect marriages, something rotten could be growing. He had exposed them, but in doing so, he had exposed himself. The cause of his justice wasn't only their humiliation, it was his solitude. Friends hesitated, acquaintances whispered, and though no one said it aloud, some wondered if the revenge had gone too far. Michael wasn't sure anymore. He stood in his backyard on the third evening, staring up at the slow-burning stars. The wind was sharp against his skin, and the distant sounds of laughter floated from a neighboring house. Life, it seemed, went on for everyone but him. The satisfaction he had imagined, the justice, it had come, but it hadn't filled the space Ashley left behind. It hadn't healed the betrayal, because justice didn't undo pain. It just changed who held the knife. Inside, his phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, unknown number. He ignored it. It buzzed again and again, until finally curiosity cracked his restraint. He picked it up, expecting perhaps another reporter or concerned neighbor. What he saw was a message. "You weren't the only one watching. Nice work at the gala. Let's talk soon." No signature, no name, just those words. Michael stared at the screen, his heart thudding with the faint chill of something wrong. You read the message again, slower this time. "You weren't the only one watching. Someone had been observing him." A knock echoed at the front door, sharp and sudden. Michael turned toward it, phone still in hand, mind already spiraling. He hadn't told anyone what security system he used. The cameras, the audio backups, those were his secret tools. He'd been meticulous, private. He opened the door, but no one was there, only an envelope on the doorstep. Plain, unmarked. He bent down, picked it up. Inside, a single photograph. Him standing in his study, holding the USK, staring out the window. The shot had been taken from outside. Michael stepped back, cold creeping into his bones. Whoever had sent this, they'd been watching long before the gala. Not just Ashley, not just Ryan. He looked once more at the photo, then at the phone. The illusion of control, the belief that he had orchestrated every move, cracked. And for the first time in weeks, Michael felt something he hadn't expected to feel again. Fear. His story wasn't over. Not yet.